Hey guys, welcome to the first official podcast of Delving into the Silver Screen. I'm Steph.
I'm Adrian.
And we are just here to watch films, nerd out. We have film degrees that we've never used, and we're just excited to watch movies and break them down and find out what you guys think of them. Because, well, I feel like Adrian, you and I, we've got a pretty selective taste.
Well, yeah, I'd say, especially with what we're going to be talking about today, I'd say we have a divisive taste, maybe when it comes to certain genres of films.
Yeah.
You're more of a musical girl.
100%.
100%. And I like one musical, which is Singing in the Rain. And I haven't really seen anything else.
But that's like, I mean, yeah, it's a musical, but you only watched it because it was the first film in Technicolor?
Yes, and also film school made you watch it, so that's why I watched it.
Yeah, of course.
But it's a good film.
I've never watched it.
Oh, you haven't watched it? Okay, well...
No, I haven't.
It's pretty great. Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Adrian, why don't you tell the lovely listeners, if there are any, I hope there are. Hi, guys, if you're listening.
Hello.
What did we watch this week, and what are we reviewing?
Oh, okay. So yeah, well, what we watched, it's a Netflix release. It's called The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. Now this is a very interesting film. It's not your typical. It's a western, but it's an anthology.
Kind of.
Well,
it's not a Clint Eastwood western.
No. It's a western in a sense. It's an anthology of very different short stories spread out, just in the nature of the Wild West. It's a Coen Brothers film. I guess we'll get into who they are and why that matters. But yeah, no, it's a film I was looking forward to for a while, and no, it's like I said, I adore it, and I can't wait to talk about everything why I love it, and then we can go into why you don't like it as much as I do.
Yeah, it was not one that I was going to finish
until I forced you to.
Yeah, I mean, it was on my list though. When you said that you wanted to watch this one, I did go back and I'd already selected it. It was in my list to watch. But once I started it, if you hadn't been so adamant about wanting to review it because you loved it so much, I wouldn't have finished it because we've just got very different opinions of it.
See, I can't understand why someone wouldn't like that, especially someone who is like a cinephile. But I guess then we'll get into like our difference of opinions in the breakdown.
Yep.
But as what we should do actually is we should get into the weekly brief.
Yeah.
Which is the segment of the show where we go through the news stories that I've accumulated and we discuss them. Okay, so our first story is weird. So you know how everyone's trying to jump on the streaming service. You know, you got Hulu, you've got Stan, Netflix, Amazon. So Apple, you know, who make the really crappy phones, they have. I don't like Apple products. Anyway, so Apple have actually started their own television and feature film network. And
seriously, how did I miss that?
Yeah, it's pretty weird. So their first film that they got going is called On the Rocks, and it's a Sofia Coppola feature film, which is a big deal because she is a very important name in modern cinema.
She is related to Nick Cage, yeah?
Nick Cage? No, I don't think so. I was going to say she's a daughter of Francis Ford Coppola.
Nick Cage is like one of his nephews.
Ah, okay. Well, this is first-hand knowledge. I did not know. Really?
Okay, give me you keep talking. I'll Google it.
Wow. Okay. Well, I did not know that. But yeah, so Sofia Coppola is the daughter of the renowned Francis Ford Coppola, and so her inclusion to Apple's launch is a pretty big deal. I guess you'd want to get out with a bang, and having such a renowned director is a pretty awesome way to do it. And what's also interesting is that Bill Murray is signed on to be the lead in this. And the interesting thing is Bill Murray's actually done a couple of films with Sophia, mainly just Lost in Translation, which is a film I adore. I actually love it. And also a very Merry Christmas, which is a very meta celebration of the man himself. But yeah, so I'm interested to see where they're going with this. Hopefully they make better content than their technology, but I'm just biased.
I mean, okay, I understand that you dislike the Apple products, but like they've lasted forever. They wouldn't be if they were such a terrible brand like Motorola, then like they would have died out. That is
No, that's true.
my-
I mean, I guess it's more of like, because it's not like, you know, the people who Steve Jobs worked with are making these films and TV shows. It's Apple has basically probably hired or bought out a production company that they're just going to use to funnel out these projects. So
they've just put like a bunch of money
so I'm
into other people.
Yeah, so because I don't know, because Sofia Coppola has her own production company, but I'm not sure if they're just going to settle with maybe getting a whole bunch of different ones, or if they're just going to kind of work with a main production company. Or what they could do is they just finance and invest in properties to work with.
Yeah,
so that's more than likely. But yeah,
on
that's
a side note, they're cousins.
Oh, they actually are cousins.
Sofia Coppola is the daughter of Francis Ford Coppola, and Nicolas Cage is the son of August Floyd Coppola, and those two are brothers. So they're cousins.
So they're first cousins.
Yeah.
That is unreal. Right. That's something I never knew. Okay, that's amazing.
How did you miss that? We went to film school, and I'm pretty sure that's where I learned it.
Really?
Anyway, back to tangent.
Okay. Back to the new. I didn't know that. All right, so back to
in a more entertainment style vein, we had the Golden Globes just recently.
Yeah, that was last week, right? Or beginning of the week?
Yeah. Yeah. I want to say like Friday last week.
Yeah, okay, yeah. It was pretty recent. Like, it was in,
Yeah. And I was pretty excited because Sandra Oh won Best Actress for Killing Eve.
Yeah, right.
Which is really exciting.
I know Rami Malek from Bohemian Rhapsody, he took away the lead actor for the award.
Bohemian Rhapsody. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yes, that's pretty sweet. That's cool. I haven't seen that, but he's cool like that.
I mean, I always knew that Freddie Mercury, the lead singer of Queen, and the person that Rami was playing is Indian, but I always thought he was Native American Indian, but he's actually not. He's like Pakistani Indian, which...
Hang on, what? This is... See, again, I've listened to Queen almost I think I came out... I was born listening to like the greatest hits. I never knew this. I didn't...
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I found out a little while ago that he was Indian, but yeah, I always thought he was Native American, like Cherokee, but no, he's like Pakistani Indian.
Really?
Yeah. It was really cool.
That's incredible. Okay, wow. You've already blown my mind with two personal facts about celebrities.
Thank you.
That's great.
This is what I'm here for.
I had found quite a lot of, because this is our first proper, episode, and I found quite a lot of actual movie related news about releases and setups. So
this is my favorite part, because you tell me all of these exciting things.
Yeah, right. Okay, so the first one is kind of minor, but it's basically, if you're anyone out there, including you, Steph, a Marvel fan of the MCU, the Black Widow film that they're doing, apparently the writers have pitched it as an R-rated project.
Like an American R-rated, or
I'd say American R-rated.
Okay.
So that's interesting, I guess, because I guess Black Widow is synonymous with a very, I guess the point of her name
dark
is
theme.
Yeah, I suppose so. But like, we already kind of have that film in Red Sparrow, the Jennifer Lawrence film from last year or the year before. Where she's a Russian spy. So she's So she's basically Black Widow. And if they do an R-rated film, it's kind of like that's not needed. I don't know. It's also because of Disney.
Yeah, but like let's break it down. Is that the American version of an R-rated film is different to the Australian version of an R-rated film? Our definition of an R-rated film is stuff that falls into the category of like psychological stuff, like The Cell and something else is like failing to come to mind. Whereas the American version, or their standards for an R-rated film, is much more like gore.
Yeah, there's this gores, nudity, and like curse words and stuff.
Yeah, so their R is like our MA15 plus in Australia. Okay,
well, so then I guess the point of conjecture is it just going to be, are they going for like a really, like you said, dark, violent, gorish kind of R-rated film? I guess apparently the consensus is online, people are wanting for it to be, I guess, like Red Sparrow, throw the nudity in, throw the violent deaths, throw the curse, but also this is owned by Disney, and a lot of young people love that Black Widow character. Yeah. So if you release an R-rated film, you've lost a large majority of her fan base as a character.
Yeah, because like one of the things we learn in film school is that the superhero movies falls into the category of like boys 15 to 30, 35, like that's the demographic. And if they go for an R-rated film, they lose like 15 to 18-year-olds.
Yeah, and imagine trying to sell, toys to children for an R-rated, like a Black Widow toy for her movie, but the film's R-rated and you're selling toys. Like this isn't the 80s selling RoboCop toys to kids. You can't do that anymore. Yeah. So I don't.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, I think it's more like they just pitched an R-rated idea, and the Disney's probably going to pass, and then they'll have to, fix it out. So
I always feel like it's easier to go over the top and dial it back than it is to start off basic and build it.
Yeah.
So maybe that's kind of what they're going for, is something that's super over the top so that they can be like, well, we're going to take off this and this, but everything else is pretty good.
It's probably the smarter way to approach something.
Yeah. What's next on your list?
Okay, the next is something I'm personally excited for. What I'm hopeful for is, I think yesterday or the day before, Bad Boys 3 officially started principal photography.
Cool. Very cool.
So it's called Bad Boys 3, Bad Boys
That's
for
like
Life.
A 90s original film?
Yeah.
So the Bad Boys movies?
Yeah, so the two of them are both directed by Michael Bay, featuring Martin Lawrence and Willem Smith. So the first one came out like the mid to late 90s, second one was like early 2000s, and they're quite moderate hits. And so it's been like almost 20 years since the first one, and both actors are quite old, like in their 50s. And so this is a very like a personal thing to me because I grew up watching those. And so I even have my notes. Hopefully it doesn't suck, because usually the trend is when you kind of soft reboot or do a sequel to a franchise 30, 20 years later, there's too much hype for it and the movie kind of falls flat over expectations. So
which is a real nice point to make, that Mary Poppins is like 40 years later.
Oh, Mary Poppins Returns. Yeah, we'll see. I've heard that film is actually really good.
It's freaking amazing.
Which is,
and you haven't watched it yet, which means that's not it. Like we couldn't open our very first podcast episode watching Mary Poppins Returns.
Well, I know. So, I'm gonna get shit for this for ages.
I'm so mad.
So the next one is pretty also important to me. Tom Cruise. Carly, my partner Carly doesn't like Tom Cruise, but I love Tom Cruise. I
hate Tom Cruise.
Oh, you hate Tom Cruise too? I think the ladies just don't like Tom Cruise. But I love him. And so it's been announced that he's coming back for the 7th and 8th Mission Impossible movies.
Okay, those ones are pretty decent though. I'll take that.
Yeah, okay. So,
and I loved Edge of Tomorrow. That was a good one.
Well, that's actually important to the story. So the 7th and 8th movie will come out respectively to 2021, 2022. And the director, Christopher McQuarrie, who actually has directed the last two, is doing those same movies. He also directed Edge of Tomorrow. So him and Tom Cruise have their kind of like groove and how they do things. So hopefully, like it's going to be to the form of they've done previously. Because I think 4 and 5 have been the most well received out of all the previous Mission Impossible movies.
Nice, cool.
And the interesting thing about this is that McQuarrie turned down a lot of job offers from DC Films to come back and do these Mission Impossible movies. So
he must really love doing them then.
Yeah. That's why I'm excited for this, because clearly he's passionate about doing this, because he turned down what was apparently like quite a lot of like films in like sequel form and jumps off. So he must really be invested in this. Cool. So that's pretty sweet. And the next thing is, again, this is another kind of director kind of rumored news, is if anyone is a fan of Ghostbusters, there's...
Wait, original or remake?
This is original. So the news is Jason Reitman, who's the son of Ivan Reitman, the original director of the 1984 and 89 movies. The son is rumored to be directing the new film that comes out in a couple of years. And the thing about this film is that
what film?
The new Ghostbusters movie.
So the original director's son is directing the next Ghostbusters.
Yep. And
that's a mind meld.
Yeah, right. How cool is this? But so the thing is that this film will be a sequel to the original movies, So Sony's pretty much scrapping the one that came out a couple of years ago, and they're going
but
back.
I really liked it.
Yeah, well, I didn't, but it's fine. But yeah, so I guess they've given up on the reboot with Melissa McCarthy and all that. So yeah, so now they're going back to the original universe, and there's no rumors if the original cast will come back. Like Bill Murray and all those guys. Obviously, Harold Ramis died a couple of years ago, but no, this is really cool. Like it's a kind of like a lineage thing. The son of a very famous director is coming to do his dad's work.
He's like legitimately going into the family business.
Yeah, I think it's amazing.
That's so poetic.
Yeah, it's great. So the last news is pretty important. I have in caps on my notes. Cancel your Netflix, people. We got some bad Netflix news. Yeah.
No.
Cancel Netflix, everyone. Cancel it. So it's okay. It's not like the biggest news in the world, but everyone's pumping this up as like, it's like Netflix is dying, only in the sense of, so apparently Netflix is set to make its biggest price increase ever in the streaming service. This is basically due to programming costs and the rise of higher caliber actors that they're bringing on for the projects.
Because of their actual like Netflix original
stuff. Because like like they paid. I think Jennifer Aniston is in a film that came out recently, and she got paid like well over $1 million just for her role in it. And they got Sandra Bullock recently. Yeah. So basically each sub plan that you have, if you have like the HD or single screen, whatever, they all jump up a couple of dollars.
Right.
So if you have like an $8 plan, it's like $10, $14 plans, it's $17, stuff like that. So it's only a couple of dollars jump. And the thing,
American or American or Australian though.
Oh, well,
where $1 American dollar is $1.39 for us.
Okay. Okay. So if you go into the exchange rate, I guess it's more expensive for us.
Yeah.
So the thing though is that the jump of cost will be immediate for all new members, but for pre-existing accounts, it will be a slow roll in over the next couple of months. So so by the time I guess your next, anyone has Netflix, your next payment or fee you'll see an increase. So Netflix is dying, everyone. Yeah, it's too much. I'm going to cancel it. I'm just going to write it out.
Well, I don't pay for my Netflix anyway. I'm on a friend's account.
To be fair, I don't either. I mean, I pay for Stan, but I don't actually pay for Netflix either. Oh man,
but we'd have like a trade. I'm not just like scabbing off of her. She pays for Netflix. I pay for Spotify. It's the way we roll.
Okay, I'm scabbing off my family.
You're just scabbing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess they pay more. It doesn't bother me. So there was other news that I had, but again, I can't tell everything. I just grabbed everything that I thought
I
was
really
exciting.
like to talk about things. Sorry.
No, that's fine. It's fine. It's all good. So yeah, there was only one other bit of the news, but it's just about M. Night Shyamalan's movie, but that's fine. So okay. Well, that's the end of our weekly brief.
God. And oh gosh, I'm so sorry that it like went for so long. I'm actually looking because Adrian and I are in separate cities at the moment. We're testing out this
long distance.
Yeah, long distance, preparing for his move and my move, and just a whole mess. So our very first podcast is our very first attempt at a
long distance
at a long distance relationship.
Okay. Well, so I guess that's the end of that segment. Push it out of the way. It's gone. So we can start with the film breakdown. So
so why don't you go through the plot, because I am still really confused about it, and you love it so much more. So I'm just gonna immediately talk shit about it, and it's not gonna do anybody justice. So
okay, all right. Well, this is the Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
People are so easily distracted. So I'm the distractor with a little story. People can't get enough of them. Because, well, they connect the stories to themselves, I suppose. And we all love hearing about ourselves. So long as the people in the stories are us. But not us.
All right, here we are. This is our critique. It's time to discuss the film. But before Steph and I get into the nitty and the gritty, I first would like to go through the production history. This has been surprisingly in the work for quite a long time. Like, you would be surprised how long the Coen brothers have wanted to put this to screen. So
probably a good reason it didn't.
Sorry, what was that? I couldn't hear.
I said there's probably a good reason it took so long.
Oh boy. Okay. I'm triggered. So accounts kind of vary about how long this was in the works, but the consensus is the Coen brothers had been working on this story for about 25 years.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, right.
That's a long time. That is not at all what I thought you were going to go with.
So basically, these guys have been directing since basically, like their first movie was Raising Arizona, I think, in '89. And so they've been around for a while. And yeah, so this came about from them in their careers. They're just writing all these short stories, like Western short stories and stuff. And
are the Coen brothers, sorry, I'm just asking a question. Are the Coen brothers the one who did Seven?
No. So the Coen brothers, they're most known for the films like, No Country for Old Men, The Big Lebowski, the remake of True Grit, Hail Caesar, which I didn't like.
Oh, True Grit. Yes. Haley Steinfeld. Love it.
Yeah, right. But the two favorites that they've done for me is Burn After Reading Fargo. I love Fargo.
I do actually. I remember watching Burn After Reading.
It's good.
They've got
it's
a
funny.
very distinctive style. The Coen brothers.
Yeah. They have a very dark kind of comedy thing with them.
Yes, that's true. That's
just how they are. And so the weird thing about this is, so like I said, they were working on this for 25 years in like writing script form, and they even the titular Buster Scruggs, Tim Blake Nelson, he's a very kind of he's a very low. Well, it's not like a super famous guy, but I think he's a very underrated actor. Anyway, and so he apparently was given the first script for this back in 2002. So that was probably during, because he's been in a couple of films of theirs. The most notable one was Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Do love that one.
It's great. Yeah, it's great, right? George Clooney. And so he was
That's one of my dad's favorite films.
Oh, is it really? Okay, well, there you go. So obviously Tim Blake Nelson was in that film as one of the leads. And so I'm assuming around that time, because that came out around the early 2000s. And so I assume they would have approached him and given him a script. So they've had him in mind from the very beginning, which is pretty great. And then so we basically jump forward to 2017, and the Coens join Anna. Oh man, I can't pronounce his name. Annapurna Pictures. It's named after some mountain.
Okay.
Annapurna Pictures. Anyway, so
I'm not gonna. I can't pronounce it either. So.
Yeah, my pronunciation is horrible. So they pretty much joined with these guys who just launched said new television sector, and so these guys are actually known for they've done like Lawless, Killing Them Softly, Zero Dark 30, American Hustle. They've done Her. The most recent one was Vice, the movie with Christian Bale about Dick Cheney. He was the vice president to George Bush, and so they've actually done a lot of good stuff. I wasn't aware of, like that it was these guys who did it. Anyways, and so with their first ever foray into television was they wanted to make the Buster Scruggs with the Coens. It was originally supposed to be a 6-part series, but the Coens really wanted the project to be an anthology, which is perfect. I'll get into that. Why that matters.
Can you explain for the viewers, listeners, and me what anthology means?
Okay, well...
I mean, I could just Google the definition of it, but I'm lazy.
Well, an anthology is basically just like a selection of stories that are tied together in a way, but not directly. Like they're related, but they're not not narratively, but like, so with this, all the stories in Buster Scruggs are thematically tied and they're very relevant to each other, but they're not.
Okay.
Right? So yeah, we'll get into why that's the case. But so they really wanted this to be the anthology, not like a separate series, which is good because I really felt like this particular format suited this film. And it was probably the most interesting thing to note about this is that this is the first ever digital production they've ever done. They've always shot on film, and so they just decided, what the heck, why not? We'll shoot digital. For some reason. So, and I think it does for the betterment. Like film always has a particular look that everyone loves, or certain people love. I'm not, film is, I guess, it does have its aesthetic in a way, but I do think digital is what everyone should be pushing for because you get a much crisper and a much more, I guess, cerebral look. So it's good that they finally did this. And so basically they were going to, they really were pushing for someone like the production company to hit mainstream, but they were worried because of apparently the trends towards the studio system is, they only really, studios only really want superhero movies and previously established franchises. So
yeah, you really have to be, you have to be a very popular, well-established director, producer, just like a whole entity before any crazy ideas are even allowed. It's kind of like, and I'm going to throw a lame rom-com in here, but it's kind of like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. When the lead character wants to write like really serious articles, but because she works for a girly, quotation marks, magazine, she's only allowed to write about really superficial stuff like how to float your way out of a ticket, or a parking ticket, and like just like really superficial things. And you have to be a well-established person in your field doing the nitty-gritty, shitty, awful things before they'll even like consider letting you do what you want.
Well, that is true, but like the Coen brothers, like they're one of like the top like director pairs where like they're synonymous with, you say their name and you know like who they are, but like but it doesn't mean that they're profitable. Well, no, but that's the thing. So they were worried that if they approached the studio networks and stuff, like these guys would like push it in a different way, or they just really, the studios maybe wouldn't find this particular project to be, worthy of investment because it's such a niche thing. And we'll get into why, like maybe that's why some people don't like it. Unnamed people. But so because of this, they thought, okay, well, Amazon, Hulu, and Netflix, they're investing heavily in original programming features. And so the Annapurna and the Coens approached Netflix, and they were like, we love this. We're going to give you everything. Netflix threw all the money at it. And so again, like it's a weird thing. So Netflix sometimes gives their premiere features like some cinema releases. So Buster Scruggs actually did have a very limited theatrical release. To my chagrin, it actually didn't perform very well. Technically, it's their lowest ranking debut, but hang on. So it's the lowest debut because it was only released in only maybe a couple of hundred cinemas for a very brief time. So it wasn't able to make its money. And I'll get into why.
Also, was it I don't feel like it was marketed very well either.
No, it was marketed on Netflix, but I had no idea, before, watching the film and getting into it, I had no idea that this even got a cinema release. And it was so, but the plus side of that is the Netflix records for that have been proven more favorable, where critics and audiences have been, pushing Buster Scruggs critically, and so it's gotten like a 92% on Rotten Tomato, which is
that's pretty decent.
That's really good, right?
I say like. Yeah, that's pretty decent. That's a good score. Rotten Tomatoes is pretty. Yeah,
and so
it's pretty cutthroat.
So the fact that the Netflix audiences have really responded to it shows that it being released in cinemas definitely isn't the right thing for it. Where I think Netflix even. They said a statement, I think I'm paraphrasing, but they said it being in cinemas, they said, they're basically saying that it doesn't matter if no one wants to see it in cinemas because that's not what it's for. They did it as just because, but then this is supposed to be a streaming feature. So So that's pretty much all the major production information, basically just to inform everyone of how this got around and why and how. So I guess we'll get into now the actual break. Oh.
Yeah. You go with the breakdown and I'll make some comments later.
Okay. So you're just gonna jive in.
It's broke. No, well, I was gonna delve further into that, but then I realized that we haven't done the synopsis yet, so it's probably no help because then we'll end up going backwards.
Okay, well,
around in circles, not backwards.
Well, the synopsis is pretty. It's. I can't really give a synopsis of this because it's not like I said, it's not a traditional film. So basically, the only synopsis I can give it is, again, it's an anthology of Western short stories.
So there's 6 of them. There's 6 of them, and there's no overlap in characters.
No, there's absolutely no characters that reprise any roles or appearances in any other story. Each story is independent in their own context of where they are set in the Wild West and what's happening. Yeah. But every story has a very strong thematic tie, some more than others. some more than like other themes. But yeah, no, basically this film in its heart is I think Carly said it best. It's about how death is a part of human nature. And that is that is the crux of what this is, and so.
Also, I just want to like jump in real quick for those of you who don't actually know Adrian. Carly is his girlfriend, so when he mentions Carly, it's not like his imaginary friend.
Oh yeah, my imaginary partner of 8 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, this is like.
Each segment's like what, 20, 25 minutes long?
No, well, some are short. Like, so there's two stories. The middle and the last one are like 20
super quick.
Well, no. So I was going to say the longest one is like it feels like almost an hour. It's probably a bit shorter.
It can't be.
The girl who got rattled, which is my favorite. That's
fucking. You know what? I wanted so desperately to like that one because I love Zoe Kazan.
That was.
I just.
I'll get into it as my favorite, but that is my hands down my favorite out of all six.
Hated it.
But yeah, so the thing with this is why Steph doesn't like it is it's. So I'll get into first how this was marketed. I didn't know that this was going to, again, like Coen Brothers films are known for the dark humor and dark tones, but I didn't expect this to be quite morbid as it was, because if you watch the Netflix trailer, it actually mainly consists of the Buster Scruggs, which is the first story. It shows him
and he's fucking singing in that. Sorry, excuse my French. I was so mad. He's singing in the very first one, and you think it's going to be this really lighthearted, fun thing. It is not.
No,
it is absolutely not.
No, especially like by the end of his story, you pretty much get the gist. Oh dear, this is how the rest of this movie is going to go. Not in a bad way for me personally. I thought it was like, this is great. Like this is taking a turn I did not expect. And yeah, it's very. Don't watch the trailer for Netflix and think, oh, this is kind of a weird, a Three Amigo type of Western comedy with a guy sings on a horse and has really cool gunslingy kind of flips and stuff. No, it's not that at all. It's very very somber, and it's not for everyone. As clearly Steph is very against it. She protests its existence.
I've done some research and I'm not 100% against it, but I definitely will not watch it again.
Oh, I 100% would watch it many times. I love it.
But again, like we said, like you have a very different taste to me.
Yeah. And I guess, well, okay, so you said to me, after I forced you to continue watching it, you said that you didn't, because I can't, like, I don't know where to go with this. I want to talk about each story, but I want to talk about, I guess, the crux of what everything means. So I don't know if I want to, do which one first, but I want to, I guess, maybe start with, you said that maybe you didn't understand what this all meant and why.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I've given it, okay, so it just had, I think, a lot of things stacked against it.
Okay.
So for me, it wasn't the fact, should we say that there are definitely spoilers coming?
100% spoilers. Like if you're listening to this, stop right now, go watch the film and come back, because the experience will be very soiled if you have not seen it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it was good that you didn't tell me anything about it before I started.
Oh, yeah.
I did enjoy the surprises, but I also really hated them. I mean, it wasn't a style I super loved.
Oh, okay.
The filming, even from the very first shot where we like pan down the canyons and we see Buster Scruggs singing.
Scruggs.
I was like, shut up. It's all I've been calling it for like the last 4 days.
Great.
It wasn't a shot that I liked. His voice was nice.
Oh, right.
And I was like, it's not great, but Adrian really liked it. I'll stick through it. Surely if it's like this the rest of the film, I'll tolerate it. But then he fucking dies in like the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm sorry. What? And then the next part starts and it's James Franco, which I might add is very bizarre how many high profile names were on this.
It's quite
and how little I liked it. I mean, I love Liam Neeson, but I did not like his character in this.
So his story. We'll get into the
third in line.
one. It's called Meal Ticket.
It's
very. Look,
hell.
it's sad. It's probably the saddest out of all of them, and you feel like garbage after you watch it, but it's still really good.
Yeah, and I mean, okay, so it wasn't a style I liked, and then he died in the first 10 minutes, and then the next story started, and he died in the next 10 minutes, and I was like, I don't want to be invested in this. And then the meal ticket came around, and it was a darker style of filming.
It was.
I mean, it was the same style, but it was darker tones, and I was just like not into it. And then it just like one shitty thing after another, and it's not a story concept that I'm super into.
Okay.
I didn't follow it very well.
Oh. Well, see, I think that Carl and I talked about it where we're like, this is a film, a project where if you're just watching it for its surface level, you're probably not going to enjoy it, because when we watched it together, from the get-go, we were picking things, because after the end of the first story, when Buster
and I watched
dies,
it by myself.
Yeah, and we were sitting there, and we were trying to pick everything out, and then after we finished watching it, we just spent like 2 hours just talking about what everything meant and what things could mean. And it's one of those films where it's meant to be discussed, and if you don't go at it from that perspective, then you probably won't enjoy it, because things like you said, it's not really like that enjoyable if you just take it for what it is.
Yeah. Which I think is also a hard part for me, is if it's something that I know that we're going to pick apart, it's actually, it's so much easier to watch it with you, because then we can make comments.
Right, yeah.
And we both kind of see things that we didn't see the first time around. Whereas this time, because we were trying the long distance thing, you watched it and then I watched it, and we're coming together. So we're only really just fleshing it out together now. Anyway, tell me why you love it. Okay. Because I just have nothing but shitty things to say, and I'm frustrated by it. So tell me why you love it, so maybe I can have a different point of view.
Well, I'll go through. I feel like I want to talk about quickly about the little things in each of the stories, why I loved like them, and then I guess the whole. Because just first off, with the Buster Scruggs story, I like. There's a scene right near the end where he's like being antagonized by like Mr. Krabs. Clancy Brown is the actor. I know him from Highlander. He obviously plays Mr. Krabs in SpongeBob, and so he's being antagonized. And
wait! Who's that? What character is that?
The outlaw that Buster kills, like in the bar with the table.
Okay.
That's yeah. So he's actually the voice actor of Mr. Krabs from SpongeBob.
Oh, I said I got excited by that, and I don't know why, because I hate SpongeBob.
Okay.
But that's a fun fact I didn't know. Yeah, very cool. Thank you. Proceed.
Clancy Brown's an old actor that I like. Anyway, and that moment when Buster kills him, I was hysterical for literal minutes. Like I had to pause it. If you haven't seen it, or when you do watch it, how Buster takes this guy out is that they're kind of having a standoff in this tavern or saloon, and Buster like somehow knows that the table they stand in front of is like kind of broken, and so he uses his legs and he starts hitting a loose panel, and he makes the guy like shoot himself in the head 3 different times. Like he just kicks. That was
a fun shot. I did really appreciate that.
Oh, I like, because I was like, if this is what the movie is, then I'm 100% on board, because that was one of the most funniest things I'd seen in a while. I went back and watched it like 2 different times.
It was pretty great.
It was great, yeah. And then I loved Buster's like his. Like Tim Blake Nelson, I've only seen him in a few things, mainly Holes, which is a lovely Disney movie I grew up with Shia LaBeouf. It's one of my favorite childhood movies, and Tim Blake Nelson is in that, and he's kind of okay, but in this he's so charismatic, and like you said, he's only in there for like maybe 10 minutes or so, but he's so captivating. Like he's singing, he's an outlaw, but he's kind of like, people treat him like he's kind of a goof, like no one takes him seriously, but he's like the slickest gunslinger in the West. Like he just doesn't need to look at you, he can shoot you, and so the ending of that story is I think is a perfect symbolism of what sets up the rest of the anthology. Basically, Buster dies. So Buster is shown very...
Basically, he gets shot straight through the skull.
In Buster's story, he's shown to be the best gunslinger. And this guy comes into town, meets Buster for all of probably 1 minute, and kills him like flat straight away. And so the moral of Buster's story is that, well, he even says the line, "You can't be top dog forever." That so in Buster's song, so this is, I don't know if this got you. Like,
he sings twice, yeah? He sings very, like, at the beginning of his segment and then in the middle.
Yeah, and so I was going to talk about the end song, because I'm not sure if this
3 times
got you strange, because at the end, like, his spirit comes out of his body, he grows little angel wings, and he's flying into heaven. And basically,
you know what? That wasn't That wasn't at all weird for me to see.
Well, okay,
it wasn't at all bizarre.
Okay, because I was caught off guard by that, and I'm like, this is strange, but I was on board because basically his song what he was singing about was how he's hoping where he's going, which is, I guess, the afterlife doesn't have the same kind of scum and villainy that he's dealt with his entire life, like the people you see him kill in the movie. And so, so his story sets up the principle of what human nature is in the West and how death follows you everywhere, and that death is the prime aspect of human nature in their time.
Yep. Okay.
And so again, like if you when you watch the other ones, almost every other story follows and has an attribute of what Buster's story included in different ways of human nature. And we'll get into what that is, but that's why I think that this movie is so much more than what it appears to be. And again, like it's you, whoever is listening to this after you watched it, hopefully, either you had the same thoughts or listen to this, it kind of gives you the insight, because I really do feel like this is, it's one of those things where, like, I think it's inevitably changed how I will approach writing. It's just in the terms of how to include thematic
Did you just say writing, like with a pencil or a keypad?
Writing, writing as in, like the screenwriting.
No, yeah,
stuff.
I thought you said riding, like on
Oh
a
no,
horse
right, sorry,
West.
I'll say it again. So what I was saying, like, because I'm an inspiring writer, and the way this movie and where the Coen brothers dealt with themes and how they work with them, I think it's like forever changed the way I'll approach including and indulging with thematic ties for scenes and characters. So it's from the get-go, it's left a very forever lasting impression on me. But we'll get
that's good.
Yeah, well, that's why I really appreciate this movie. Like I said, I adore it. But
and you got it. You're coming at it from like a story perspective.
Yeah, that's why I really
much more story heavy perspective than I am.
Yeah. And like I said, like that's why I was really like, when you told me you didn't like it, I was sitting next to Carly and I felt so sad. I'm like, I said, Carly, Steph doesn't like it, and she's like, what? I'm like, I think she hates it. And Carly's like, oh, why? And I'm like, I don't know. She said it's frustrating or something. And I was so disheartened because I'm like, this is like one of I love this movie so much, and because I wanted to talk about it with you, and then when you said you didn't like it, I was like, oh, this is the end.
Yeah. We're done. We can no longer be friends.
But okay, well, because I think I've read long enough, but I guess like what. So I guess maybe if you could talk about maybe your like maybe a little bit more in depth about your initial kind of how you felt about things.
I think. I don't know. I think I just found it frustrating because I'm a really big advocate for the underdog and happy endings and the fact that, I mean, like I live in the real world. I know that death exists, and I know in not in the real world in that concept. I mean, like I live in a world that I know death exists.
Yep.
I know that there are really horrible things, and I don't really enjoy watching stuff like that happen on screen.
Right.
And I also didn't realize that it was an anthology. I didn't realize it was like a bunch of short clips, short segments. And so I just got really tired. I think I got to the third.
It's emotionally exhausting. I should point that out for anyone listening. It is very.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yep.
I got through the first three and I was just so frustrated. I don't think I was maybe angry as well, but like I was really frustrated at the fact that there was just like the main character in each thing died. And then the third one came around and he died for no reason.
Wow.
And then
not no reason, but
I mean, okay, but like from a superficial audience point of view, for no reason. He got murdered. Yeah. And then the fourth one comes around, the prospector.
Yeah.
And I actually cried.
Yeah, you said that made you cry, and when I read that text, I was like, I don't understand. Like that's the one that has an actual happy ending. I don't. Is that?
No, I know. But like, okay, let me break it down for you.
Cool.
1, I'm a girl. 2, I'm a crier. I'm like a hardcore crier. There's not a lot of things in life that don't make me cry. Okay. So watching that one, it's for those of you who haven't seen it, or even those of you who do and don't remember, the prospector is the guy. It's literally, there are 3 characters in that whole chunk. It's the prospector, his donkey, and another guy.
Some outlaw.
And he's digging for gold. Mm-hmm. But he forms this really bizarre love
for finding
this-
it. Yeah.
for the gold, and he calls it Mr. Pocket.
It's a pocket, yeah.
And so he's like, he's digging, and he's like, I'm gonna find you, Mr. Pocket.
Yeah.
Don't you worry. And then he finds it, and he's so overjoyed.
I love the line.
And then he gets fucking shot.
In the back, right in the back. Yeah, well, I love the line he says when he finds the gold. He says, I'm old, but you're older. And because you can...
Love that. That was a really cute one.
Yeah, you get it that he's been trying to find this like gold supply. Well, I guess like, what is it? Like not a nugget, but like, I guess, what would you call it?
Stash.
A stash of gold. So we'll say he's been obviously searching this for probably most of his adult life. And like you said, like when he finds traces of it being nearby, he just gets so emotionally invested. And the moment...
Yeah, and it's almost...
Yeah.
Sorry, go.
Oh, I was going to say the moment when he finds it after he says a line, then you see the shadow go overhead and he immediately knows what that means. And so that tells you that he has dealt with this plenty of times. And he even, like, there's a shot where, like, a POV, he looks to the pickaxe. He's like, if I try to do that, I'll definitely die. But then he gets shot anyway. And then you think he's dead.
So you do think he's dead. But it's also, I just want to make a point that, yes, he very clearly has been looking for gold his entire life, but the way that he says Mr. Pocket and the way that he looks for it's so bizarre. It's so bizarre that he can form this weird, very compelling emotional attachment for the audience to watch with a pocket of gold that he's never met. Yeah. But it's almost like his entire life he's been looking for this one particular one. Yeah. You know, like it's an old friend and he's like, don't worry, buddy, I know you're lost and I'm going to find you.
Yeah, right. That's a nice way to look at it.
It's so compelling. I really love it. But then he gets shot, right? And you think he's dead and you're like, fucking no. Yeah. But also because you expect it.
Exactly. You expect him to die
every
and you're
protagonist,
like, God damn it. Okay, he's dead.
Every protagonist until that point. And I'm like, yeah, well, fuck you, Coen brothers. I don't want to watch this anymore. But then... Yeah. Like, he's not dead. No. He's alive. He kills the bad guy. I forgot what the outlaw.
It's a very tense, because it could still go either way. Knowing what this film is like, he could still end up dying anyway. But then he manages at the last second to use the guy's gun against him, shoots him through his hand, and then gets him in the eye. So then he kills the guy, and then he takes his nugget, and I guess he like moves on with his life.
No. Stop. Okay, this is the part that made me cry.
Oh, okay, here we go.
He doesn't actually get his nugget after he shoots the guy. He gets out and he goes and washes his body and his hands and his side. And he is like crying. He's overwhelmed with adrenaline and joy and sadness. And he... like, you can just feel the clash of emotions in his body, like he doesn't know what to do. Yeah. But also you're expecting he could still potentially die. So you're like, oh my God, is he going to think he's made it and then die in the fucking water? And then he wraps himself up and he's laying next to the fire the night.
Yeah, the night of.
Like the night after. Yeah. Or the night of, whatever you want to call it. And I can't even remember what he said, but he said something, but it was very sincere and it was to the pocket of gold about how he'll protect it or like, don't you worry, Mr. Pocket, like I won't let no one else take you. And it's just so sweet and overwhelming. And I'm expecting, him to die because everyone else has. And I was just like, no, this sweet old man, he just wants to take his gold and be happy and you can't let him. And I was crying so hard. But like, it's also a testament to the acting.
Right.
Like it's a very minimal script. It's very heavily done with acting and
visual
scenery.
Cues. Yeah. Well, by the way,
just so good.
The place it's shot, really it's this very beautiful. I think it's a lot of CGI backdrop, but it's a very beautiful canyon with like a very lovely creek, and it's such a picturesque environment. And I love the scene where he's trying to hunt for food, and he finds an owl's nest, and he tries to get the eggs. He takes all 4, and then the owl looks at him, and then he feels bad, so he puts some of them back, and only takes 1. Dude,
I totally missed that.
Oh, you did? Okay, well, so that for me,
I must have been so mad, and I stopped watching that part.
That for me told me that like this is a very He's a good guy. He's a very good guy. He's just trying to find his
Doesn't
fortune.
want to do more than he...
Yeah. So
doesn't want to take more than he has to.
yeah, exactly. And that's what I love about that story is it's called Gold Canyon, I believe it is. And so after he leaves, he basically he buries the guy in the pit where he found the gold. He takes what he wants and he leaves with his donkey. And so for me, that story kind of encompasses what the American dream was at the time, where you have someone who's dedicated their whole life to try and get what they want and the life they want and the things they want, and then you have someone who tries to come and shiv them in the back and take the shortcut to get the way in life, but that doesn't really work out. And again, it also kind of shows the nature of just how the Wild West worked, where like at any point, you could just you'd be killed for nothing or killed for, the thing you've been driving your whole life for. And so, so that story is very important because it's just, again, about human nature and just how outlawish the Wild West was, where every man was for himself. Even though I loved how the death is a strong thematic theme, I liked that you had a reprieve where someone actually got what they wanted in life, and they didn't die. Yeah. And so that for me, I appreciate. Yeah.
I really appreciate that particular story ended on him leaving with the donkey in this really picturesque moment. We didn't there wasn't an overplaying of that where he went off and did nice things with the gold or squandered it or lived happily ever after with it. Like it was this nice kind of open-ended he's walking off into the sunset kind of thing.
It's basically, it just shows that his life is going to continue. Like that's it. Like this isn't the end of where his road goes. This is just something that happened and now he's going to continue on.
Yeah, it's just the end of that chapter.
Exactly, yeah. And so, that's obviously the most. It's a lighthearted. It's nice to actually have the, like I said, reprieve from the death. But I really want to talk about the second and the third, because Meal Ticket for me is very interesting. But the second one, the James Franco one, which is the very second, I think the shortest out of all six, for me that did really nothing. Like it wasn't particularly interesting. I was like, I don't really understand why they have every other story is so strong in the way the characters are and the way they set things up, and that one I just felt really flat. And so I'm glad they just got that out of the way, and the fact that it was short. I want to talk about it, but also it's just the most boring and there's not much to it. It's just James Franco commits a crime. He almost dies and, is served justice for it, but then he gets away, but then he's immediately caught again. And then he ends up dying for a different crime.
For something else too, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, because the guy that rescued him was stealing cattle. And so then...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so then James Franco was arrested and convicted and killed for was it cattle rustling or what it was called. So he was caught and then killed for something separate. And anyway, so it's a very but the way it ends is at least interesting, where it's his fate. He seems content that he's going to die, and then he looks and
he finds a pretty face in the crowd and is like, all right,
and then just ends. He just looks at the girl, smiles, she smiles at him, and then he's like, all right, I guess this is how I go. It's just, I don't know, it's just it's weak, and I really think that they either shouldn't have included it or just done something better. But I want to talk about Meal Ticket into why that's the most depressing out of all of them.
It's horrible. So basically, explain it. Explain it for the listeners.
If anyone's still listening after this, hour and 12 minutes we've been talking. Basically,
it's not going to be an hour and 12 minutes when I listen to it, though.
No, hopefully, this is going to suck to cut down. Oh my god. So basically, Meal Ticket is. So the crux of it is Liam Neeson is a traveling showman kind of, and
oh, he's not, his son is.
Well, no, so he's a traveling what do you call it,
oh god, what is that, a charlatan.
Okay, he's a traveling charlatan, and so his thing is he carries around what's the term for someone who has no limbs? It's not a quadriplegic, I don't know what it's called. Anyway, so
an invalid,
maybe he carries around a guy who was once a very renowned thespian actor, and he obviously has no limbs, and so Liam Neeson is like his, I guess, showrunner and also caretaker, as you see that Liam Neeson has to basically look after him like a child or a baby.
Oh wait, I thought it was his son.
No, it's not his son.
How the fuck did you know that?
I Googled.
Yeah, I actually thought it was his son, and he was born that way, and so he like bred him to be.
Well, it's okay. So it could be the resource that I found. It wasn't like again from the Coen brothers, but it was an article talking about that Liam Neeson was just like he came into like he bought this guy because again he was such
that makes it so much worse.
That this guy because. So I'll try and summarize it, but basically, this thespian actor, he is known for doing one-man shows of like Shakespeare plays. He does Ozymandias. He even does the Gettysburg Address, at the end of the Civil War. And I think Liam Neeson bought him at the time because he was a very, he's a very famous guy that would bring in a lot of revenue. Because clearly, you see later, Liam Neeson does swap him out for something. So this poor man who can't have a life of himself, his only existence and worth is his ability to like perform a show. And it goes through the story where they don't ever talk. Their only interaction is Liam Neeson feeding him, helping him go to the toilet. The one scene where he drags him up to a brothel and Liam Neeson and like turns him away as he has sex, and like this guy hates his existence in his life, but it's all he can do. And anyway, so
I really thought it was his kid.
Well, no. Well,
it just makes it so much worse in my brain now that it's not.
Yeah, the implication is there he was bored. But anyway, and so there's a moment at the end where Liam Neeson finds there's a town they're in where some guy has like a chicken that can count numbers, and people are betting on which number the chicken hits. And Liam Neeson buys the chicken, and it goes from like the thespian actor starts to get worried about, okay, well he's clearly done this, and especially with the last show, they didn't earn any pennies, and basically the end of this is so sad. It's Liam Neeson has pulled the cart somewhere, and he's just, you don't know what he's doing at first. He's kind of just like near a creek, and he's playing with rocks, and then he picks up a big one, he drops it in the river, and he watches it sink, and then the scene changes to the perspective of the young man, and just the look of distraught and despair, like he's crying, or I think he was crying, like he looks like he knows what this means. And basically what Liam Neeson does is he's found out that the chicken can earn him a lot more money than this man can. So he basically, I assume he ties him to some heavy stones and drops him in the river and drowns him, because the very next shot is Liam Neeson trotting along to the next town with the chicken in his back, and the guy's gone. And so, yeah, it's a very, again,
I don't think he would have even needed to tie him to stones. He can't fucking swim. No, so he doesn't have any arms or legs.
No, so I guess you're right. He probably just dropped him in, and it's just like it's really. It's good in the sense of like it's a really well, like there's not much dialogue besides like if you listen to what the plays are that the man like performs, it's very relevant to the story, especially the Ozymandias, which is that poem is about Ozymandias was the king of kings, and it's about his fall from grace and how he was once the most powerful man and how he whittles to nothing and eventually dies in the desert. And so the play is has such relevance to this man's life. And so the thing about this story, so we should point out with this movie, is that each story starts with like this, I guess princess bride type thing, where like it's a book. So it's a book that opens, and each story concludes and starts with like a page of the story with a picture and a quote that summarizes basically what the story is about. And if you read the end line of the page at the end of Meal Ticket, it actually says that Liam Neeson's character ended up dying anyway. And that the chicken only really helped him for a time because the chicken died, and eventually his luck ran out, and he too succumbed to the harshness of that life, and he also perished. So
yeah. It's very much like a grim fairy tale.
Yeah, it is.
Like it starts as a story and it ends as a story, but each message, the very last line is always so telling of the message that you're meant to hear.
My favorite out of all six is the longest one. It's called The Girl Who Got Rattled.
Wait, I'm just confused though still. Okay. Why did she get rattled? Like, why that specific word?
Okay, well, should we...
Is it because of the Indians?
Should we talk about that particular moment, or do you want to... Okay, do you want to do that first, and then we'll talk about the
Oh, go do whatever. I'm confused regardless, and you
Okay, so
obviously know what you're talking
okay,
about.
well, I'll just so this story is the girl who got rattled is about what would you say the actor's name was again? Because you know who that is.
Zoe Kazan.
Zoe Kazan. Okay, so she plays.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't remember her name. Anyway, so it's basically about the Oregon Trail, which is a
Alice.
Alice.
I think her name was Alice.
Right, Alice. So it's about Alice and her brother trying to start a new life over the other side of the West, and they join the Oregon Trail, which is a very famous trek that a lot of these frontier men and women took to lead better lives. And it's about her and her brother trying to make that journey, survive the journey to go somewhere for that. And basically she makes an attachment with the trail protector, I suppose. Mr. Knapp, was he like, did he lead, or was he just like a hired gun, I suppose?
So it's almost like a 70-30 partnership. So it's a duo that takes care of the trail, because someone always has to ride at the front and someone always has to ride at the back to make sure no one gets lost.
Was it Archer?
But he's definitely the lesser partner.
Yes, Arthur, and there's then there's Mr. Knapp. But
oh fuck, I don't even remember.
Arthur's the old guy. Yeah. So
I just remember the president.
Oh yeah, the dog. Oh, I'm glad that didn't end the way I thought it was going to. But yeah, basically, so this story, the reason why it's called The Girl Who Got Rattled is at the end, this girl goes through quite it's not like a hard, it's not like hardship, but basically she's very paranoid, she's very scared of
life in the West.
Yeah.
Hardship.
And she's very scared about the prospects of because her brother dies during the journey very early on, and she's very scared about going to this new life without him, and she's very afraid of everything. And basically, there's a point where she runs off. We should probably mention that. So why the axe falls is because there's a dog, like you said. What was it, President? What was it?
Fuck, I don't even remember.
Oh, okay, so she had
Pierce.
President Pierce. He's a purebred Jack Russell that belonged to her brother, and after the brother died, he kind of attached to her. And at one point, because they're traveling through what I guess is known Native American territory, the character Mr. Knapp decides that, hey, your dog's very loud, we should probably get rid of him. And so I guess
because he's a Jack Russell, obviously, and they bark.
Yeah, and so
continuously throughout this, like, people are like, he's fucking annoying.
Yeah. So Alice allows, Mr. Knapp comes to her because we should set up that Mr. Knapp and Arthur actually kind of help her from when things start to get bad. After her brother dies, like, they kind of take care of her and kind of look after her, especially. Yeah. And when the dog becomes a nuisance, Mr. Knapp offers to put the dog down and just to help her and help the rest of the community. And the dog obviously gets away because he's a fiery little Jack Russell, and Alice is actually relieved because she kind of she loves the dog, I guess mainly because it's like the only part of her family that still is kind of around her. And so that comes back.
It's one of those like when you make an impulsive decision because you're frustrated or tired or exhausted, and the minute you do it, you're like, oh, what have I done?
Yeah, she regretted it. She 100% regretted it. You could tell she's very relieved that the dog got away. And so the dog comes back at some point, and so she goes missing. And the Arthur, who's the older, the ranger, I don't know what you call him, he goes looking for her, and he finds that Alice and the dog what were they, what do they call them? Like the little like animals that live in the holes in the ground. What are they? Something dogs? Prairie dogs, right? Prairie dogs, right? So she's never seen a prairie dog before because she's never lived like outside of like a city, I suppose. And so she's kind of taken by these little prairie dogs, and so is President Pierce. And when Arthur goes to rescue her, they get attacked by a war band of Indians or Native Americans. And Arthur says to her, because like he's very outnumbered by like a dozen, and
there's so many.
Yeah, and he says to her, look, he gives her his revolver. He's like, look, if I go down, there's 2 bullets in this. There's one for me, one for you. And he's basically like, look, if I get taken out, you need to put it in between your eyes and pull the trigger. Don't hesitate. Just if they catch you alive, the things they'll do to you before they kill you, you'll wish you were dead. And basically, surprisingly, Arthur manages to hold himself very well against like 13 Apaches. Like he takes them out pretty well, and he uses the terrain because of the prairie dog holes. The Indians fall over, and the
horses keep well because they're all riding horses, so the horses keep falling in the holes and like snapping legs. And crushing and
that's why he didn't ride off. He stood his ground because he knows that he has the advantage. Anyway, and so there's a point where he fights them off, and seemingly he gets attacked out of nowhere, and you think he's dead, as is the movie. And last minute, the Indian goes to scalp him. He stops it. He kills the Indian, and then you just hear President Pierce barking, and Arthur walks over, and you find Alice is dead. She's killed herself.
Because she did exactly what he told her to.
Yeah, she did exactly what he told her to, and right between the middle of her forehead, she's dead. And he just says like, poor girl. And that he feels like, I guess he feels bad, and also just he's like, well, she did the right thing, because for that point in time she thought he was dead, and so that's why the reason why it's called the girl rattled is because she was pragmatic. She's very pragmatic about life, and that kind of, I guess, overwhelmed her to the point where the logical thing to do with that at that moment was to take her own life, because if she didn't, then what would happen to her? So pragmatism killed her, and that's kind of the crux of her character in the story.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess I agree with you, but I think fear is, I mean, you're talking in an overall concept, not she consciously went like, this is the only thing to do.
Well, no, because you see her character throughout this entire story. She tries to take everything from a very practical, logical approach. You know, how she's dealing with someone, you know, like a guy who is owed a dead by her brother, and about, you know, like what her prospects are in life, and about how Mr. Knapp wants to marry her, and how her family works. So,
I suppose.
Well, again, like this is just how I saw it, but yeah, so it's pretty much it's very sad, and the ending is, I love the quote that's on the book at the end of the story is it says Mr. Arthur didn't know what he would say to Mr. Knapp, and the picture is Arthur and the dog returning back to the wagon trail, and Mr. Knapp goes to approach them, and what really hurts at the end of the story is that just previously Mr. Knapp and Alice had agreed to marry each other, because Mr. Knapp he wants to settle down. He doesn't want to do his life anymore, and he wants to help Alice out by marrying her. He actually accumulates her debts that she's owed, and that he can help look after her and take care of her, and that's what he wants. He wants a family. But then I guess because of how her outlook at life kind of caught up with her, and she died for it. And and the reason why this is my favorite is because this, I feel, had the most character, like, especially characters, and these felt like, out of everyone, they felt like the real people. You know, like there was long conversations, there was chemistry built between, you know, certain characters, and I said to Carly that, like, if this was a full-fledged like feature film, like just this story in itself, I would happily watch it. And
oh god, I totally wouldn't.
Oh, okay. Well, I would, and so that's why I see it as my favorites, because it felt like the most complete, and these characters felt like they were the most real.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, actually, in saying that, I think part of the reason I wouldn't watch it is because I already know that she dies in the end.
Right. Well, okay. Well, yeah. Well,
if I didn't know she died in the end, maybe I would watch it. It's an interesting reality check to watch each episode and be reminded that at any given time of life you can die.
Yeah, and I think that, like, that, again, like that's where death being a part of human nature comes into it, where you're right, like, especially because how the Wild West was. There's a reason why it was called the Wild West, where it was a new frontier where, at any point, for any reason, people can die, either by their own volition or by just happen chance, you know, and that's what these stories set out to show. And then you get to, I guess, what is the finale. The last one's called Mortal Remains. I think it's the second longest. It's basically just a carriage ride and a conversation. Yeah. What I love about this is it's 4 different philosophies on human nature. And I'll get into why, but I actually want to hear about what you thought of this, and if you actually got what it was going for straight away.
So I'm going to be honest, I was multitasking during this episode, this segment, because I was just like not into it. The actual movie, not this
Right.
segment
I
specifically,
was
but
confused.
it was actually the one. It was the one that I enjoyed the most. One, because it was set the most like a stage production.
Yeah,
so
that's kind of how it came across to me as well.
It could actually just be taken, that one segment taken from the script, from the movie, and put straight to stage, which was really cool because that's like my background. I thrive in that regard. So that was really interesting to see, and I really liked the fast pace of it.
Yeah.
So the very quick back and forth, and kind of there's no downtime. There's no real moments to spare.
No, because that's why. See, the reason why I think this is probably my second favorite is because of this is like a writer's dream where it's these four overlapping and contradictory aspects of so the premise of this is there's a carriage ride of these five people who are traveling to some fort somewhere in the west, and you have a frontierman who's like a trapper, he's a hunter. You have a high society, she's not English, but I guess she's just a high society maiden, and then you have a French.
Yeah, I know her actress.
Yeah, I recognize her straight away.
Her name.
Then you have
she's good on she's been on Broadway just recently, and she is also like, she's big in TV as well.
Yeah, because as soon as I saw her, I'm like, I know her from something, but I couldn't figure out what it was. And then the third main passenger is a French gambler who I know as Donnie from Frasier.
Seriously, he's Artie from Warehouse 13.
I know Warehouse 13. I can't remember his name, but Artie. But I know I know his Daphne's fiance that she almost marries in season 9 and 10. He's a lawyer. Anyway, I love Frasier. So
I hate Frasier.
Frasier is one of my favorite. It's my favorite sitcom besides Cheers. So I love those.
Of course, Cheers is a good one. I appreciate that a lot.
The other two passengers is again, who seems to be a high society, a very intelligent, intellectual Britishman, and then you have an Irish. Big gruff man who's played by Brendan Gleeson. I guess most people would know him as the guy from Harry Potter, Mad-Eye Moody, I suppose. That's where...
Oh, shit, he is too. I immediately went to In Bruges.
That's a good movie, by the way. In Bruges.
I freaking love In Bruges.
Yeah. Colin Farrell. Not Colin Farrell,
Firth.
Colin Firth. No,
Firth.
Wait, no, it's not Colin Firth. It's
yeah, it is.
It's not... No. Colin Firth,
yeah,
is it?
Colin
is
Firth.
it? Right. Sorry.
No, Colin Farrell.
No. Colin Farrell's a comedian. Oh, shit. Is it Colin Firth?
No. Colin Firth is from Love Actually. Will Farrell is a comedian. Colin Farrell is the Irishman who was in Daredevil, the original, and In Bruges. Right. Oh, my gosh.
We got there. We got there. But yes, anyway, In Bruges is a good film from 2008. I think it is. It's lovely. It's very, very great. It's about hitmen in Europe.
Super good.
Anyway, and so... Yeah. So the premise of this is these five people are traveling to the fort, and on the journey they have a discussion about the prospects of what makes people tick, and each passenger has their own ideology about what human nature is and how people are. So you have the trapper who compares everyone to animals, and the animals he kills. So basically, he's of the ideology that human nature is basically we're no different from the creatures that we eat and consume and that we kill. The American lady has the viewpoint of there are only two people. You basically have the faithful to the Lord, and then you have those who are sinners and heretics or whatever.
Oh, yep.
Right. Then the Frenchman, his is interesting because his ideology of human nature is that people are very complex and you can never truly understand their motives and who they are. But by the nature of him being a gambler, I think it's very interesting because the woman the entire time on the ride, she's talking about how she's going to see her husband, hasn't met him in 3 years, and that he still loves her and she still loves him. And the Frenchman kind of always keeps countering her points by saying that you could never really know what love is, and it's very I really love his particular dialogue conversation because it's the most interesting out of the perspectives. I agree. Yeah, and then
I really like the idea that she's literally following her faith.
Yeah,
she's
right. Yeah, exactly. How good's that? Yeah.
She's going to her husband because of her faith in him still loving her, literally following her faith. And he's like, yeah, but people change.
Exactly, yeah. So
and also his version of love is different to your version of love. And she's like, no.
Yeah, but it's funny because he sets off like a panic attack for her because he kind of like challenges everything she says and upsets her to the point where she has like a meltdown and then you think she's gonna die like in the carriage. So that's what that was funny. And then so the other two, the other ideology, sorry, is the Englishman, and so you find out that him and Brendan Gleeson, they're actually, is it Brendan Gleeson? I think it is. And
I don't know. He's just from In Bruges.
That's it. Moody.
We'll call him Moody. We'll
okay.
call them by their other character names.
So the Englishman and Moody, you find that they're bounty hunters, and the Englishman makes a comparison that they're reapers, that they reap the souls
which is very interesting.
The unjust and the terrible, the wicked, and so his ideology of life is that death. So this is where the thematic. The note of death is part of human nature comes to an end. Is that what he's saying is that like death is human. It's what encompasses everything about us. Death follows everywhere from. From I guess that time people died a lot during birth and stuff. So it's like death is a part of everyone's life all the time. It's everything. And so he talks about how the thing he loves the most, I suppose, is looking into the eyes of someone as they die, and kind of seeing like I guess what does he say? Like he says like he understands the complexities of life when like he watches someone die, something like that. Anyway, it's very interesting. And so the interesting thing is that because so far we've seen that so to a degree people have always died in every one of these stories, and so when these guys reveal themselves to be bounty hunters or reapers, that the three passengers become very unnerved. And Carly and I thought that maybe it's because it's kind of like a whodunit kind of clue where like each one of these people have done something really wrong in their life, and that these bounty hunters are actually coming to get one of them, but we don't know who it is. It could be any of them, and each one of them thinks that it's them, and so I thought it's either that or just by the nature of them being bounty hunters and the guy being really kind of like have this weird affectionate way of describing death. I guess it would be a very uncomfortable thing to be around, but I was very on the train of, they're here to kill one of these three people and we don't know who it is, but it turns out that's not the case. They arrive at the fort and the bounty hunters reef a corpse of the carriage. They take it in, and our three amigos hesitantly exit the carriage before it leaves, and basically they enter the premises, and that's it. It's done. The scene ends, and so does the movie. And so I want to know.
Does that one have an end page?
Yeah. So the end page describes the French. So it talks about how the Frenchman, because he's the last person you see for that short, and it
good old Artie.
Good old Artie. And it describes how he's very weary about what the events that are about to transpire, and that they're in for a long night. And so so it's weird because the story itself doesn't have closure. So this short story doesn't complete anything. It's like clearly like
I think it depends on how you saw it from the get-go.
How you value what that means. But I think more again, the thematics of this movie are more important, I think, than the narrative, the attributes, so to speak. So I think thematically, this ties up and finishes the movie completely. But this story as itself, it doesn't end. It kind of just like. It's kind of like the Gold Canyon, where like sure this particular moment ends, but then like the page says at the end of the story that things continue on to some degree.
For me that was a really it was a very definite end, both to the movie and to that particular segment, just because it was kind of like the whole thing was about death, and bounty hunters and they've got the dead body, but in reality they're like the Grim Reapers and they're taking 3 souls to their destination, and they hit the destination.
Yep. Yeah, so that's the one thing I love about this story.
Y'all motherfuckers are dead.
Yeah, exactly.
You got out of the carriage. That's it. You're done. Like, don't pay the ferryman until you get to the other side.
So it's one of the things where, like, I think, yeah, well, okay, so I'll ask, at what point did you realize that this was like a supernatural, I guess, to a degree, story where you realized, okay, they're ferrying the dead? The minute
he referred to himself as Reapers.
Okay, yeah. It's around that point as well.
It was already really dark, and then he said it, and I was like, you're dead. Yeah. You're like a pair. And he actually explains how one of them distracts and the other one
I love that part where he talks about, like... And
it's literally happening as he says it, and they're not doing anything about it.
Yeah, because he says he distracts the victims by entertaining them with a very interesting dark tale or something, and then the other guy is the clubber, and he's the one that collects stuff, and then he immediately goes and tells that story that he's referencing. So you're like, oh boy, okay, here it goes. That
right, and it's almost like, how do you not see it? Right. You stupid characters.
Yeah, it's one of the things where, like, the dead aren't supposed to know they're dead, I suppose. But so I love this because it's, again, like, nothing to do with anything else, but it very much is. It's a summary of everything we've seen before, and like you said, even what you said about how this could be the journey of life. Even that your viewpoint on this fits perfectly for the context of what the story is. And so that's why, again, this is my second favorite, because, again, the conversation is interesting and the payoff thematically, I keep saying that, but it is to me. I do love it. I wish though it had a more definite ending. Like, Artie just closes the door. He puts his hat on. He watches the carriage leave with all this stuff. Then he turns around, kind of a bit, apprehensive, and then he just walks in, closes the door. That's it. And then it cuts back to the book. The book folds up, and then we're done. And then the credits roll. So Carly and I even thought there would be something else, so we waited till the credits finished, and then we're like, no, that's it. And that's everything. And then we spent like 2.5 hours just talking about everything, and and now here we are. Here we are at an hour 46 still talking about it.
I know. We should probably, like, wrap this.
Well, yeah, okay. So
because it's going to be a nightmare for you to edit.
This might take me.
I'm so fucking tired.
This might take me 2 days to edit. But I guess so. Okay, I guess because
we have time.
We've talked about maybe. Yeah, could you? Can we talk about everything? Could you then go through as articulate as you can why you still don't like it, even though in hindsight we're talking about now, and if anything has changed for you?
I mean, I appreciate it more now talking about it with you and having like your perspective on it. But I still won't watch it again. It's just
I'm definitely going to watch it again.
And it's not because I hate it, and it's not because I don't appreciate it. I said I do appreciate it. It's just, it's not something I find enjoyment in, and I like to watch things that I find enjoyment in.
So because I think you mentioned before, when you mean enjoyment, it's because it's something you watched alone, you thought you could just sit down and relax and kind of get into?
I mean, yes and no. I also really appreciate when a character is fully fleshed out and has the chance to grow and has really beautiful moments. So, like, that last segment was really great for me because from a performance point of view, it was fucking gold.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it really is
so good. But, like, that first segment was really lighthearted, almost like a comedy. And I'm not the biggest fan of comedy movies. Okay. So that was really hard. And then I don't really like James Franco. So the second one was really bad. Yeah, I don't like watching Liam Neeson be a murderer.
Yeah.
So that was really dark. I didn't like it. The fourth one made me cry. The fifth one was just too long.
Well,
I know that you'd like it.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it. It's fine. And it's weird though, because like you said, it was the most fleshed out.
Well, like you said, you like stories that have really fleshed out characters and stuff. So that's why I thought if any of them you would like The Girl Who Got Rattled the most.
You'd think. You'd think. Apparently not. And I think it's more because I've seen Zoe Kazan in, or Kazan. I think it's Kazan.
Maybe. Yeah.
Kazan. I've seen her in a few things now, and she plays a very similar character in most things. Okay. So that might have been a downside for me.
Right. We never mentioned, like, visually this film is actually really appealing.
So good.
It utilizes some.
It's got some great shots. That canyon shot and the canyon shot where he's singing and it echoes.
When Buster it's like singing to his echo in the canyon. I think that's great.
Yeah, it was really good.
As westerns are, like, this movie utilizes the landscapes and long shots and and
the color saturation. And the dark earthy tones, just beautiful.
Visually, it's again because when I mentioned that it was a cinema release, it's like I would love to see this on a big, IMAX screen or whatever.
Oh, yeah. It'd look great on a big screen.
But by the nature of what it suits being like an anthology where you can watch one of the two of the stories, you come back the next day, watch the others, where, like, I have no problem. Like, the next time I watch it, I'll just watch it all the way through. So I'd have no problem doing that. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's a very creative and very interesting to look at. So yeah, I wish I could see this in the screen. All right, well, I guess, we'll end that segment there about a review. So
that was a long one, but I think I appreciate the film much better now, having spoken to you about it. That's fine. It's good.
The more I talk about it, the more I like it. It's one of those things where, like, I could talk about this forever, and the more I do, the more I just want to watch it again. I 100% adore this. So anyway. We have for our podcast, we have a segment that's called What's at the Box Office, where Steph and I, we talk about, or I guess what is now one thing we want to watch and one thing we have watched that we recommend.
So because we're film nerds, we can't narrow it down. So, as you can tell by this nearly 2-hour recording.
So okay, Steph, why don't you go first and tell us about the thing you've watched and thing you want to watch?
Okay, well, obviously the thing that I have watched is Mary feckin' Poppins Returns. It's so good. Mary Poppins is like a big part of my childhood, and I watched it with my mum. We went to the lounge at Limelight Cinemas in Ipswich, and it was just as magical as the original. And I honestly adore Emily Clark, and she can do no wrong. So I loved it.
You mean Emily Blunt?
What did I say?
Emily Clark. I don't know who that is, but you mean Emily Blunt, who played Mary Poppins.
Yeah, Emily Clark. Sorry, we were talking about Game of Thrones today, and I still said her name wrong. It's Amelia. It's because it's an E at the beginning, and I always get really confused.
I don't think Amelia Clark would make a good Mary Poppins. Just saying.
I mean, she might.
Too short.
She's got a long face. Emily Blunt is
Emily Blunt is great.
Emily Blunt is great.
Okay.
Anyway, and what I'm going to watch, The Boy Who Would Be King. I'm so keen.
I remember seeing a trailer for that like last year or something. It looks kind of cute. I'll admit, it looks kind of all right.
It's, for those of you who don't know what that is, it's the descendant of King Arthur, but it's modern day England. And it's this like really weedy white kid who has just been beaten up, and he ends up in this like weird construction site. He finds the sword and he pulls it out, and it's really comedic. There's just like so many moments in the trailer where you're like, that's fucking hilarious. What have you seen, and what are you keen to see?
Oh man. Okay. Well, I'll start with what I'm going to see, I guess, is for this is I'm going to watch the 2 Mary Poppins movies. So then we can talk about them on the podcast. So hopefully I will be doing that. I'll do it next week.
Perfect.
I'll watch them next week.
Whatever the week after is when we release this episode.
I'll try. That's all right. So I'll plan to watch Mary Poppins, both of them this week, back to back. See how that goes.
Okay, good.
The thing I am watching is something I would highly recommend, an Amazon original. It's Man in the High Castle.
What's that?
This is so if anyone knows, it's based on a book by Philip K. Dick, who's a very, very famous science fiction author. So this is a story about how imagine World War II, but the Nazis and Japan won the war, and so it's 20.
I like that concept.
It's 20 years past, 22 years past the end of V-Day, and America has been split into the new Reich and the Pacific States, controlled by the Nazis and Japs respectively, and it's about a resistance. A small resistance movement who was trying to topple and get back to country, and there's the collusions with who's a Nazi spy, who's not. The Japan actually really trying to undermine the Nazis? The Japan going to help? So it's really it's
really
very
cool.
high production value. It's really good. I only started watching it a couple of days ago, and yeah, I'd really recommend it. I've never seen like it's the concept that I really, really enjoy. Like alternate kind of Earth stuff. So if you have Amazon, you should get it.
You should send me a link to it, and maybe put it in the description of this episode as well, in case people want to check it out.
It's really good. That ends our What's at the Box Office segment, and to that end, that's the end of this show for now, for today, for this week.
Yeah. So that's it. That's our very first episode. Well, our very first live episode. So guys, let us know what you think. Adrian and we spent a really long time trying to figure out how we were going to make this work. And while this was long, I actually think this is a really good one to start on, because it was super in depth.
I think
structure.
It was. We went really in depth. we actually properly broke down the story about something, which is really cool. So,
we did, because the mock one, which maybe you guys can find somewhere. It's on YouTube, but I don't know if we've made it public.
I'll just put it up.
We will, or maybe we'll hold on to it and send it out later.
Maybe at some point I'll put it on the domain so people can check it out if they want. As a bonus episode.
We just ripped the shreds again. We just ripped the shreds off that one.
Not a good movie.
And I'm still telling people not to watch that movie.
I'm advocating don't watch it. But
it's just awful. So let us know what you guys think, and thanks for listening. If you made it,
thank you very much
all the way through it.
We do love doing this, and hopefully Steph and I will be doing this for quite some time.
Until then, bye guys.
Bye.